Hi guys, hi Tia, hi Kathy. I'm Jeannie. If I haven't met you before, it's nice to meet you. I'm gonna turn my fan off. It's driving me nuts. Got a minute or two. We'll let a few other people join us. Hopefully that'll work. I hope everybody's having a good day. It's kind of, I don't know, it looks like it might start storming where I am. I'm in eastern North Carolina. Brenda, you're in North Carolina. I hope you guys aren't having storms there. I'm not sure if it's going to storm or not. It's just getting a little bit more and more hazy. So, hey Lori, how are you? It's good to have you guys with me this afternoon. I have to tell you, it's like true confessions. I am really, really nervous about these live streams, and I taught for 23 years standing up in front of groups of people. There's no reason, but for some reason this is just different. So pardon me if I skip a few beats here. Oh, Lori, I hope everything's okay with the storms. It is, according to my watch, 2 o'clock. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get started. I'm here today because, first of all, Kelly asked me if I could do this week's live stream, and I said, sure, I have something I'd like to share. And I'm going to talk a little bit about cross-hatching. Cross-hatching, and you saw it in the picture introducing this live, is actually quite a classic quilting design. And it's just a series, if you're not familiar, it's a series of connected lines, and it has either a diamond or a on-point diamond or square shaped pattern most of the time. Sometimes it's just regular squares. It can be used for a lot of things, but in the past, cross-hatching has been one of those edge-to-edge designs that just give people fits. In other words, they're trying to do an edge, myself included, may I add, myself included. They're trying to do an edge-to-edge design, and you go to realign everything, and it's just off. Your crosshatches, even the ones in the design itself, don't connect. I'm trying to turn it off. It's actually, maybe that'll work. There, we'll try that. They actually don't connect at the points. Then when you go to reposition everything, it doesn't connect at all. And I promise you the ceiling fan will go away here shortly. I'd love to make it go away, but it's got to stay. So they don't connect and they don't align, and I think is what I'm trying to say. I happen to be on another group, and I can't remember who. I think it was Meg. It was Best Quilting, Megan Best. I think that's her first name. She mentioned that she had finally, after all these years, done a cross-hatching edge to edge, and she thought it was amazing, this technique. And she found the technique on Instagram, and it was from a person called Tawny. Let me look at it. Tawny Oland. Well, I immediately went to Instagram and I tried to connect with it, and it was just this, like Instagram videos are, this really short clip on what she did in order to connect her computerized edge-to-edge cross-hatching. And she used rulers. And I looked at it for a while and I thought, well, you know, that's pretty cool. I'd like to try it. So I decided it was going to be my mission to go in and see how to use all the functions of Pro Stitcher in order to create our cross-hatching. The first thing, there are a couple things I did find out that are extremely important when you're doing this kind of design. The first thing you have to look at is your design itself. And we're going to look at a couple of them that came with Pro Stitcher. And the second thing you have to know is your throat space. In other words, you have to be able to move backwards and forwards in your throat space. Kelly has talked a lot about it in her previous live stream videos on how to judge if you're going to have enough room stitching or not. You know, you move your head or your machine to the back, then you move it forward, and you can always reference back to those particular videos. But the reason it becomes important in cross-hatching is because you'll have to actually create a line of stitching, and then we're going to leave a space between a second line of stitching. Brenda, I'll get to your question in a little bit, but I will say right now it's going to be available under live streams on guide 29, and I think I had that in the post this morning, and it should be there for a long time, or at least until I choose to delete it. So anyway, in order to size your cross hatching, there's a couple things you have to do, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. Today's live stream, I want to explore the way of connecting them. Second of all, to identify our Pro Stitcher tools that are going to help us connect our cross hatching so that they really look professionally done. And third of all, we're going to look at understanding what the key components are to creating the cross hatches that actually match up. Let me turn you around and towards the bed of my machine, and I'm going to show you one of the ones that I did as a sample. The one that's up there, it's kind of hard to see, and I apologize with the cats, was the first one I did. And the second one is this particular, let me see, is the white one. And you can see that on here my cross hatching has become a diamond shape, and the diamond shape, it has to do with the way I sized my design. But it looks pretty good, and this was actually 2 separate rows of cross hatching done, and I connected them with my secret tool, and I'm going to share that secret tool with you in just a few minutes. So the first thing we have to do is we have to pick out a cross hatch design. So I'm going to turn you up to my, oh dear, Pro Stitcher tablet. And I may have to turn my light off. No, that's in the back. I'm sorry about the glare. I thought these lights were going to be wonderful when we put them in when we redid this room for me. So in Pro Stitcher, and this is going to sound really kind of funny, I'm going to go to Design, Open, and you see under Designs, under Megan Best, you can see that up here at the top, maybe. She has 3 different types of cross hatching. Well, I played around with all 3, and I found that there were problems in creating an edge-to-edge in these 2 particular designs, in Best Cross Hatching 3 and Best Cross Hatching 4. The one that I found that worked the best for this particular technique, and remember, there's 1,000 ways to get to the end of this channel once you have an idea of what you're doing, was Best Cross Hatching 2. Now, I am going to go ahead and open it since I'm here, so I'm selecting it, and I'm opening it. And I've brought it into my crosshair. Now, the first step that I'm going to do in deciding how I'm going to put this design together to create edge to edge and to create a connected edge to edge is what I'm going to call it, is take a critical look at my design. If you look at this particular block, and that's actually what this is, you can see that the start point is here and the stop point is there. Well, if you've ever done a edge to edge and you can't figure out why it's not connecting, why you can't get your point to connect, always look at your start and stop points. These 2 points need to be start and stop instead of the way they are right now. It's easy enough to fix on this particular design. So I'm also going to measure the distance from here to here. Did you see that? Or from here to here. To do that, I can look at, I've got my grid on. To turn my grid on, I go to my quick access toolbar, which happens to be in the far left-hand side. Now this is, I can personalize this, but that's for another day's lesson. Kelly, that's another day's lesson. If you do not have it in your quick access, you go up to, I hope I can get this right, View, tap on it, and Grid is the second tool in right here. And you can see I've got my grid on. If I tap that, maybe. It turns it off. But we need that grid right now. If you've never used your grid or you don't engage it routinely, the solid black lines are 1 inch spaces. The lighter, the gray ones, are 1/4 inch. So if I'm going to look at this and I'm going to measure my distance from this point to this point, now I'm just setting up my design. Let's make that clear. I look at this grid and that is 2 inches. Now, if I'm a little hesitant to say it's 2 inches, on this particular design over on my right-hand side, it comes in at 6 by 6. I taught school for 23 years, but I did not teach math, and I'm just going to leave it at that. There was a reason I did not teach math. But if I do 6 by 6 and I count my edge points, that's 1, 2, 3. My edge points, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So again, that verifies that it's 2 inches. But I can tell you for a fact that not all designs, all crosshatch designs will easily fall into that. It's this big and I've got this many. So the best way of absolutely doing it is to look at your grid, and if you need it to be on the black lines, which sometimes my eyes do, I simply move my design. I can hold on to it and move it down, or I can reposition it. But now you can see that there's actually two, if it stays selected, there's actually 2 inches in between the top of my cross and the bottom of my cross. Now I'm going to write that down so that I don't forget it, because when it comes time to set up my design, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use 2 inches as the gap in between one row of cross hatching and the second row of cross hatching. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to my area, and I'm going to set myself a 2-point area. I'm sorry, click the wrong one. So I'm going to come to the back of my, let's see if I can scan out, because after I've measured this, this is pretty simple. I'm going to leave it for the purposes of this class at 6 inches square, and we're kind of short on time, so that's going to make a difference. I'm going to set a 2-point area, and I'm going to make it a little bigger. And I know you probably can't see my machine, but you'll hear it. So now I've got a 2-point area, we think. Maybe not, since I didn't tap the right ones. On a 20, you can program your handlebars. On the 18, you actually have to tap the screen unless you've done the hack with the pencil mouse. So now I have an area, as I'm going to pan out so that you can see it. Go home. And you can see I'm going to make it it's 21 by 41 inches across. My height is 14, and I'm going to make it 22 just because then it looks more like a quilt. I'm going to take my design, and now I have to set my design so that I can actually, let me see if I can raise this up, and no, yeah, that'll work. Perfect. There we go. I'm going to take and I'm going to rotate my design so that I can create an edge-to-edge finish with this. So I'm going to go into Modify, and I'm talking about this part of my design, not my area. I'm going to go to Rotate, and I'm going to hit 45 on the right-hand toolbar twice. And you can see it's flipped around. But if you're paying attention, and I hope you can see that okay, it's still not the correct way for an edge to edge. It'll stitch backwards if I leave it like this. Remember, start point on the left, end point on the right. So now I'm going to take, design is selected, I'm going to hit mirror. Now my design is actually in the right position to create an edge-to-edge design. The next thing is crucial because you're going to lose all the modifications. You select baseline. and that becomes your design. Do not save this into the folder where you found it. Save it either to your own folder on your tablet or to a USB. I tend to save all of my designs to a USB because the more designs I do, the more designs I alter, I forget to take them off, and they clutter up my tablet. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reposition this design. And now we're still just setting up, guys. I'm going to reposition that design, and I'm going to put it up at the top of my area. I guess I need to go to align. So I'm going to go align, left, and top. Now I could have repositioned it, but I would have had to have aligned my crosshairs up at the very back of my area. You see that? Now my crosshairs, I could have used reposition. But what I want to do is the next step is actually create my edge-to-edge design. So I'm going to go to repeat, because remember, I've done my modifications to this design. I'm not ready to baseline yet. And I'm going to add designs, 1, point to point, make sure it's green. You see that? Those are connected. 2, and I'm going to put 3 designs up there. The reason I do that, because I'm going to leave, I've measured my diamond shape at 2 inches, and I don't want to alter that yet. After I get the entire quilt set up is when I would do my resizing, or before I ever started. I could have gone in, and instead of having this 6x6, I could have had it 4x4. So once you're at this point, you're just going to leave it until you're done. Okay, just leave it till you're done. The next step in getting continuous edge to edge is crucial. This is probably the most crucial part of this whole procedure. I have my edge to edge stitching. Now I'm going to go to my vertical repeat. The very first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in. There we go. Down under gap, right here. I'm going to tap on, let me do that again. Tap on that window, and on my gap, that measure that I had from here to here, same as here to here, I'm going to enter that number, and that number was 2. And now I click enter. And now watch what happens. And it's really kind of magic. I'm going to start repeating my designs. 1, maybe. Maybe not. There we go. 2, 3, and that'll be fine for now. If you look closely at this layout of a table runner, a quilt, whatever, I have a 2-inch gap up on my screen. That's where the magic comes in, okay? This can be stitched out as any edge-to-edge design. I can baseline it, and now I'm good to go. And I would go to Pro Stitcher and stitch it. The key is you've got to make the decision if you want to stitch a row and then cancel out and come back and do the next step in between your 2 rows. Or if you want to stitch the whole layout and then come back and do all of your little marking that we're going to do next. So that's up to you. Everything I've done, I just stop it at this, after it stitches here, at the stop point, go back and I'll fill in my cross hatching here. Then I'll reposition according to the way Kelly suggested in her latest live stream on repositioning and thread breaks. But you always have to have a top row of cross stitching, a gap, and a bottom row. So I would reposition, if I was going to do more than one, I would reposition with this row, because I'd stop it here after because that's what fits into my machine throat. That's about 14 inches right there. So that's a safe bet for me. I'd reposition using this second one, and I'd stitch this, then I'd go back. I know that's going to be confusing. I know that's going to be confusing. There's really no other way of telling you how to do that. But the next part of this live stream is going to show you how I'm going to do that. So let's look down. I've already stitched it out. And I have big old gaps, right? I've got big old gaps. Thanks, Kelly, for catching that question. All right. I have row number 1 stitched, and I have row number 2. Now, in Kelly's repositioning of her video, she suggested you write down what row you were on in your entire layout in order to get, to be able to reposition it after coming to a complete stop. I lose those pieces of paper. So I learned a long time ago that if on the batting, if I write the number of the row, then I can't lose it. Unless I lose my whole quilt, which, I wouldn't put it past me. Okay. So I want to point out my 2 rows that are stitched. Okay. First of all, the next thing I found out, and I'm going to back up a little bit here on framing your quilt. When you're doing crosshatch, and I know the tendency is to make it nice and straight across here, and you want that nice firm. You really need it to be exactly as Kelly has described, with a little bit of a slump. I judge mine by if I can just barely see the outline of my throat right here. It needs to be a little bit looser so that you aren't tugging at the points of the join on your point-to-point stitches. For example, I think, and this one came out really good, I have to say. It was right in here that I had joins. And on my original quilt, those joins weren't very well lined up, but when I loosened my quilt up, those joins just nestled together just beautifully. All right. So now you're probably going, this lady is absolutely out of her mind. What is she going to have us do next? Well, this is kind of the magic part, and I'm going to take a couple pins. What we're going to do is we're going to go into record and mark. And record and mark is lovely for stitching straight lines. Short straight lines, it doesn't matter. But we're going to do it a specific way. For example, I'm going to start with a point there, and then I'm going to come over to this point. So it actually skips every other point. So I'm going to do my whole row like that. Go from here to there, 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 to there. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do there to there, or there to there, opposite. I'll be honest with you, on a short quilt, I would just come up and do it backwards like this. I've had really good luck with that. But how are we going to set that up? Let me roll you up, bring you in, and you're not going to look at the tablet at this point. Well, you are, as long as we're setting it up. But once you start marking your points, if you have a 20, you're going to be very fortunate because you have that built-in laser light, and that's just amazing. If you have an 18, it's going to be a little bit different. If you have added the laser light, you've got that capability. If you haven't, what you're going to want to make sure is that your needle drops, or maybe your eyes are better than mine, drops exactly at that point so you can connect. To connect those points, we're going to go to Pro Stitcher. We're going to hit record, and then we're going to start marking our points. If you have an 18, you're going to have to tap the mark right here on your screen on the left-hand side with every point that you add. If you have a 20, you can use the handlebars. So in order to do that, and now's when you're just going to look at your quilt or your top, I'm going to take and I'm going to move my pen. I'm going to put my laser light over my point, and I'm doing this sideways so it's kind of hard. And I'm going to set my mark. You can hear it. And I'm going to move it over to here. Set it. And I'll do half of these and then I'll let you see the screen. Mark. 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 And mark. And now I want you to look at what I've got on my screen. If you can see that, you can see the dark black line that's now selected and the start and the stop points. That is going to be the filler for that gap on my crosshatch. In order to stitch this, I'm going to simply go to Quilt, Run, Proceed. And we'll just stitch this part. And I'm going to apologize because it's really not good. And then be gentle on me. Remember, I was doing it sideways. Okay, and I'm going to pull up my thread. And you can see that I have the first lines. You know, you may want a heart shape in between that gap. I don't know. But in order to complete this, I'm going to go back and do the same thing from this point to this point to this point to this point to this point. So to do it quickly, Pro Stitcher, record, mark. 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 And mark. And now you can see my screen. It looks, whoa. I just moved my design, but that's okay. Go in and deselect that and select that. Pro Stitcher Quilt, Run. I'm not sure why that black line's down there. We'll see. Oh, that's because I moved that too. Well, pooey. All right, so obviously that didn't work. I'm going to deselect everything. And I'm going to take and I'm going to go. Teaching time, teaching moment. So now I have a little bit of a problem. Okay, let's go back to this, select this. And I have repositioned my crosshairs just at the mark on my quilt, the beginning of the second row. Okay. Obviously none of that's correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move, modify, reposition, Pro Stitcher, new start end, and I'm going to jump down to my second row. And now I'm going to go to modify, reposition, start point. And that will take my original quilt back to where it needed to be. Okay. Now I'm going to go to Pro Stitcher, record. I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to record, and I'm going to mark the second row again. None of this is selected. None of it will stitch. Watch me say that. It's been that kind of day, folks. Now I'm going to go back to, I need to look at my yellow wall. Run. And proceed. Now I'm just going to do a little bit, and it's dark black. And I'm going to resume. Trim. Okay. And even from doing it from the side, you can see that looks pretty dadgum good. That is so much fun. Before I say goodbye for today and give you a couple other little hints or tips, remember, like I said, you can always, do what I've done and just stitch a couple rows, but it's always row, gap, row, gap, grow. Now that top row may be one that you've already stitched, okay? And you just have to keep that in mind as you advance your quilt. The other thing I wanted to show you, and this might be a little tricky, is I'm going to get rid of my cross hatching. So I'm going to go to Edit and Cut. And I want to show you what happens. Sorry, you didn't see that. When I actually resize this. So now I have this design, and I've got everything set up. Well, when you take it, and if I go to, modify, resize, and I want to do the width, I'm going to take it and I can do it this way, or I can go to align and I can do stretch. And align stretch is actually quicker, but what I want to show you is everything stays proportional, okay? Your gap is still going to be 2 inches. Everything is going to be proportional. What's going to happen when you go and look at this, even though this is 2 inches, you're connecting your points is going to take on the visual aspect of the difference in size of your diamonds. So that's why I say sometimes if you don't resize in the very beginning with your design and recalculate your gap from this point to this point, it's better to resize the whole thing once you've got it set up, because the proportional aspect of it, and it's still, when you cross hatch, it will still go across evenly throughout your design. That was just not working for me. So if you need a little bit of help with repositioning from stop, I would suggest you go to this particular live stream, and I think it's the one Kelly just did, but it's in Guide 29. All of the live streams are placed into Guide 29 in the group, and it's all, hopefully they'll stay there for a long, long time. I've had other things fall out from Facebook, but I can always find them. So with that, I hope that you try some cross hatching. I hope you enjoy cross hatching. I know I've got several quilts that I am going to dig out and do this with because they just demand this type of quilting. Until next time, you guys, keep QMPing, boy, old habits die hard. Keep long arming and have a great day. Bye.